guys, it's Daniela and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to a brand new video and a very special idea to me about reading. Reading has always been something that I've been obsessed with, but I just never have enough time to read as much as I'd like to. There are many YouTube challenges that I've seen that are like reading for 24 hours straight, how many books can I read in one day, that sort of thing. Unfortunately, I don't have the freedom to read for 24 hours straight. I do have a job among other time constraints. I will do a similar take on the video, which is 24 hours of reading accumulatively. At least you'll know that I have been reading for 24 hours and not just in the hours of the day and then sleeping for 8 hours. I have many books to read. I've got a great big collection that I've started since high school, and I've been reading books since I was in primary school and mostly reading classics since I got into high school. The first book that I'm going to be starting off with today is actually Jeanette McCurdy's new book. It finally arrived in the mail. I'm glad my mum died. This is obviously a very heartfelt and emotional book, and also has a lot of links to my childhood since I grew up with iCarly and Sam and Cat. I've already started reading it. I read 1 hour yesterday, 60 or so pages in, so we just won't include that. I'm about 70 pages into the Hunger Games first book. I started reading that before this one arrived, but then of course I had to read this one, so we'll come back to her. I'm also reading the Kimetsu no Yaiba Demon Slayer manga series. I'm on book 18. So I kind of read that when I don't want to read proper novels. And on top of that, I've got many more books. Recently I finished reading The Hound of the Baskervilles, which is like a Sherlock Holmes novel. I want to see how quickly I can read books and how many books I can get done in 24 hours of reading. I'm gonna estimate maybe between a fortnight and a month. Before we get started, let's go make a coffee. We've got many cats in the room to keep me company while I'm reading right now. Let's get started. It is currently 4th of October, 10:39 in the morning. Oh shit, I already up. I wrote 10:39 in the book area, and we're gonna start at page 59 in this book. About 300 pages to read. I don't really like reading books with their dust cover on because I feel like I'm gonna ruin it, even though the dust cover is to protect the book, but I don't want to crease it, even though this one's already creased. Thank you, Amazon. Also, let me mention my very sweet bookmark. I've got many bookmarks from my childhood. I don't buy bookmarks anymore. So I'm starting my timer. Let's go. It's an incredible book to read, really interesting insight into the acting business, but also really interesting insight into her life. We've just finished reading the parts where her mum has taught her calorie restrictions and starting iCarly, so we've just finished off her first pilot and she's just doing dress rehearsals right now. So I've made it to page 110. I read for an hour and 17 minutes and that was 51 pages in total. Now I'm going to probably go eat something and we'll see when the next time I read again is. So I actually just got back from therapy in Wollongong because I have therapy. Since I was in Wollongong, of course I had to stop at the bookshop. What the hell do you think I am? Now I've got many more books to add to my collection. So I've heard great things about the Divine Comedy. This is the big book. Can't really remember too much, but he goes to like heaven, hell and everything, and he meets like famous poets and stuff like that and talks with a lot of them. So I thought this would be a really interesting book. It also has a lot of images, and these ones were on sale, so I got them. They're quite random, but I just thought they went really well together. They're not by the same author, obviously, but Peter Pan and Treasure Island, they're kind of the same vibes. Figure A, this is where Bob's sleeps against all my books. This is my Demon Slayer collection, minus the one I'm reading right now. Anne of Green Gables, Harry Potter, Twilight, many classics, things from my childhood. I've got a lot more downstairs, but these were just like one of my favorites. All my Shakespeare from when I was studying them in school. A lot of these ones I got in school, but I only read like a couple years ago. I bought a majority of these like last year or something like that. I've also got a bunch of new books in my cupboard in my other room because they're like my new shiny ones, so I want to read them first. I love this book so much because of the nostalgia, because I literally did watch like every episode of iCarly. Here they're saying how the creator made everyone give a standing ovation for the production designer for the jail set he built in 2 days. Like, I remember that jail set. So now she's had her country music career and she's gotten her first apartment. I'm like on page 145. Been reading for 1 hour, but I'm gonna read for like probably 10 or 20 minutes more just because I can't stop. And then I guess it's like dinner time or something. But it's going really well. I've loved reading this and I'm halfway through actually, so 3 hours to get halfway through, so I guess in another 3 hours I'll be done, but I don't think that'll be today. So I'm so shocked right now. I've seen a lot of like spoilers sort of, but not really. This part I didn't know anything about. Her mom would throw things at her dad and verbally abuse him and all these kind of things, and they would get into all kinds of fights, but she never really like screamed like crazy at Jeanette. And just now she like threw a remote at her head and like is screaming and calling her a whore and all this kind of stuff, and I never even knew that she did this. So now I've just realized that she was like also verbally and physically abusive to Jeanette, which is really sad. I've just finished reading. I've read for 2 hours and 9 minutes, 79 pages, and it felt like a good time to stop considering her mum actually just died. Hey guys, it's the next day. I basically just woke up, got my makeup on, so I'm gonna have my coffee and read a bit before I get started on work. I'll be reading for as long as it takes me to drink my coffee. Here's the progress so far. I've read about 2/3 of the book. Let's go! I've read for an hour and 35 minutes, which obviously was a lot longer than it took me to drink my coffee that finished around 10 minutes in. I read 67 pages in an hour and 30 minutes. Under 20 hours to go. We're almost finished with this book and I'm loving it so far, of course. There's about 50-60 pages left, so I guess I'll finish that the next time I read, which I'll read for like 1.5 hours and probably finish it. We're at the part where they've cancelled Sam and Cat and she's also with her new boyfriend. So now I'm gonna get started on the actual work that I have to do today. I practiced my guitar for an hour, I went and edited a YouTube video for an hour, I had some lunch and now I'm back. I'm going to finish this. Finished it. If we look at the numbers, I read a total of 253 pages in 6 hours and 5 minutes. This doesn't include the 50 pages that I read before I started this video, which was like an hour of reading. Technically this book probably took me 7 hours, but we're 6 hours into my 24-hour challenge, so we've still got a lot to go. Hopefully we can squeeze at least like 3 more books in, I'm hoping. The only comments I will have about it is if you are particularly sensitive to triggers and things like that, please read up on the trigger warnings to this book. The only ones I can think of right now are death, eating disorders, addiction, yeah, just a lot of body image things and alcohol specific things, because this book does get really detailed. I wasn't expecting so much detail. I have no problem with it. I was not expecting the rawness and the detail of this book. She goes incredibly deep into her life and is very brave in everything that she says, and someone in the public eye speaking up and being honest. It's also incredibly easy to read, so it's not like my other classics that I'm used to reading. It's simple English, it's funny, she's always making jokes and always cracking me up, and there's always a funny undertone to all the sadness. It's not supposed to be necessarily, but in itself it could be a self-help book for you. I'm thinking of continuing my Hunger Games next, but I'll probably, before I do that, read my Demon Slayer. I think in memory it usually takes me about 1 hour to read one of these, so if that's correct I'll have like 1 hour here and probably another 6 hours there. Hey, it's the next day. I've just gotten back from work and I look like this. I'm gonna start reading this one. I'm on page 74, so we're gonna start from there. I've got a lolly in my mouth, don't worry about that. Let's go. I've been reading for like an hour and 20 minutes. I'm still gonna read for like 10 or 15 minutes more or something, but we're just at the part where we're about to have her first interview before the games. So she's at the Capitol and everything, and I don't know, I'm just loving it so far. They've had the training, as you can expect. The book is a lot better than the movie, so much more detail, so much more everything, because you just can't have so much detail in a movie. They're explaining a lot more the relationship that she had with Gail, and also they're going into more of the relationship that she's having with Peter. Also, if you're interested in reading the book, I will say that I really like the writing style of it. There's always something happening and it's also very detailed, especially because it's like a dystopian place. You need a lot of description, detail, and so it's very interesting at all times reading like all the descriptions and everything. You don't really get bored. In the movie you don't really know how she feels about Peter, and one thing I'm excited to see is how she really does feel about Peter by the end of the book. In the movie it seems like she does fall in love with him. They have to convince everyone else that they do so that they get sponsors and stuff in the game. I'm gonna keep reading, maybe more 20 minutes. The sort of premise of it without me spoiling too much. There's a bunch of districts. They have to take 2 people from each district to go and fight in a big arena every year, and there's one survivor. The sponsors are from the capital, the rich part that kind of controls all the districts, and you want the people from the capital, the sponsors, to sponsor you during the games. If they see you're in need of something at their own cost, they can send you things like medicine. So you want them to like you, but she's obviously having a hard time putting on a pretty face and like smiling because she's going to her doom. Obviously I know the turnout of the first movie. I haven't actually watched any of the other movies. I've only watched the first movie, which is in line with this book, so I don't know what happens after that first movie, but I won't spoil the ending of who wins. I'm gonna keep reading now, and then after I read I'm gonna have to practice guitar for the day because I haven't done that. I usually do 1 hour a day if I can. Then I'm gonna practice some Japanese, then I'm going to edit a YouTube video. So here we are at an obvious place to stop. the games. We've just had the interviews, we're about to go into the actual games. This is my chosen bookmark. It's a bookmark I've literally had since primary school when I first started reading it. So we're gonna stop it there. I read for 1 hour and 32 minutes. This is Porta in her shirt. Here's Fofo hiding her face under the bed because it's sunny and she wants to sleep. Now I'm gonna go play guitar even though I'm exhausted, but we're gonna try. So I might put a clip of me playing guitar in to just break up this video a bit. So I didn't get to read any books yesterday because I was just too busy, but I've just woken up. It's a Saturday morning. I'm going to read this. Let's go. Alright, so like I predicted, 1 hour and 7 minutes I finished, and this one was particularly emotional. We had lots of backstories in this one, and lots of things were revealed, and it was super interesting, of course. And now we're up to number 19. I know I have a problem, but just hear me out. The Midnight Library, Crime and Punishment, Coraline, and Little Women. So as you saw, I had gone to Wollongong today. I usually go out to the shops or something on Saturday because that's when I have the time to shop. And I got plenty of more books because I just can't stop. I have a list on my phone, so like I'm trying to get all the books that are on that list, and I've only got 2 left that they didn't have on that list. I want to do some reading of my Hunger Games, but I've got the biggest headache and I don't know. I'm gonna try and read a bit more, but I've been slacking on the reading because I can't get rid of this headache. I mean, I did read my manga today, so I did accomplish that. Anyway, let's go read a bit of Hunger Games. I haven't read in a couple days because I've just not been feeling very good because of my mental health, but I'm hoping that if I just finish this book, I'll get a bit happier, or at least, you know, read an hour. So I'm just going to fill today with reading as much as I can. This morning I woke up and just cleaned the house a little bit. A clean environment always makes me feel better, so that was entertaining, and now I'm just gonna sit and read. I'm having my coffee. I'm on page 175. So let's go. So I've read for 2.5 hours and I've gotten like 120 pages in so far. I'm gonna read for like 10 minutes more and then have some food. Just got into the part 3. The Victor. The last thing that's happened is the unfortunate death of Katniss's friend, and of course it was very sad. I'll probably get 1 more chapter in and then I'll stop reading for the day, or if I come back to it later, if I have time, I'll read more. Hey guys, it's the next day now. I've gone to work today and I'm gonna take a break to read, and I've actually just noticed I've got about 70 pages left of the book, so I'm pretty sure I can finish this in this hour that I'm going to be reading, so soon we'll be on to the next book. So I did the math and we have about 11 hours and some minutes. That means that after this book I'll have about 10 hours to go, and I reckon I can get at least a couple small books in there, or a big book like this again and 1 or 2 small books. Hey guys, it's the next day again. I'm wearing my sleeping shirt. We're actually going to start on A Christmas Carol today. I'm not reading this because we're anywhere near Christmas, because we're not. I mean, we're 2 months off of Christmas, so I guess we're kind of near, but it's not really time to be reading Christmas books. But it's the smallest book I've got in there, and I want to get a small one done before I start on any other ones. This one has about 116, I think, pages in it, so I'll probably finish this one today. I reckon I can probably finish this one in 1.5 or 2 hours, but they are quite small letters, so it could take longer. I probably look exhausted, because I am. I finished A Christmas Carol. It's really touching and has obviously a great story to it. There's also a movie based off this book, so you probably saw it in your childhood. If you don't know what it is, basically there's an old grumpy man and he gets visited by 3 ghosts of Christmas. He learns lessons from what they show him. It changes his outlook on life. First published in 1843. For the average beginner reader, I wouldn't recommend it because it is one of those books that are written a long time ago and have a lot of words that you have to keep searching up, or references that you have to learn. And also it's just not so straightforward as reading something like The Hunger Games where they speak, you know, plain English. Overall, a great book. It had 117 pages and took me 2 hours and 40 minutes. Overall, I have 7 hours and 17 minutes to go. So that's about 17 hours of reading so far. And I don't know what I'll read next. I feel like next I'm gonna go to like a childhood classic, which I have never read. I've only watched the movies, but it was my childhood favorite movie ever, Coraline. So it's not a classic. I'm giving myself a break from the hardships of reading a classic book. It also has a few random little designs in it, probably 1 per chapter. If you've watched the movie, you'll recognize who these are. Anyway, I'm not sure if I'll start reading this today. I'll probably start reading it tomorrow. 3 books down, 1 manga, and we're on to my Coraline. I reckon this book will probably take me just as long, probably 3.5 hours for this book, I'd say. say, I might as well just call this video spending all my money on books because that's what I keep doing. We got more books. It's now a Saturday ritual that I go to QBD in Wollongong and get books. So here we go. The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings box set. American Psycho. Restricted to over 18s. And then we've got The Old Man and the Sea. The Count of Monte Cristo. The Secret Garden. And Lolita. Much more to add to my shelf, and there's no room on my shelf, so that means I'm gonna have to go into the other room and start making room in there. But I'm pretty sure at this point I've filled up all of my cubicles, so I don't know what I'm gonna do. And now I've got even more smaller books that I might read. I've got The Old Man and the Sea, which is, it's even smaller than The Christmas Carol, so I might read this one. It probably will take me 2 hours as well. I've also got The Secret Garden, which is quite small, and Coraline, so these will probably be the books I end up finishing with. It just depends on what I feel like. My collection is ever growing. I've still got many more that I want. So that's today's haul. Hey, we're in the office. I haven't done any more reading recently because I've just been busy, but what I decided to do this afternoon, since I've got a bit of time, like an hour or two I can spare, I'm going to organize the bookshelf and reorganize and everything. I hope it looks good. It shouldn't look good if things are matching. Here's the new books that I've got that I need to put away. Okay, Porta's going ham. So what we've got to do first is put things into order of the covers. Porta's help will get through it really quickly, I'm sure. I'm gonna start off with Penguin books. So these ones are like the same but slightly different, so let's see if I put them into order what they look like. Alright, this is in order of author. Wow, thanks, my new dress. This guy's eating my curtain. I'm gonna put this one here, even though it's supposed to be on the right end. And in fact, I'll put Mark Twain and Adventures of Huckleberry Finn together. I'll put Macbeth here since I don't have any more. And then I'll put right next to it the Shakespeare. Vintage classics. And then it's going into my penguins. Puffins. My Puffin Fault in Our Stars that goes with the HarperCollins. My Hunger Games. Then I've got Harry Potter here, and then I've got Twilight over there, and I do have The Hobbit. Perfect fit. All my child books, I think I'll put them somewhere else. I'm running out of space fast. I've just straightened them all out so that they're level and even. I'm gonna have to come back to this another day when I figure it out. I also don't know what I'm gonna do with all these. These are the last books I'll be buying for a while. Hey guys, I know it's been at least a few days. Please, don't look at it. I'm about to start reading the next smallish book. It's The Old Man and the Sea, 99 pages, so I reckon I can finish this in like 1.5 or 2 hours. Jared's making us a coffee. Let's go. Hello again. I have just finished it. It took me 1 hour, 47 minutes. It was an incredible book, very easy to read. It wasn't like my other classics that were kind of hard to understand or anything. This was very simple to follow with a bit of knowledge of fishing. I don't really have any, but like you kind of get the context after a while. It is very much about fishing. If you can't get over the fact that it's about fishing, then you probably won't like it. Basically about the journey of an old man on his way to get a fish. It's a story about resilience, confidence, positivity, their reflection against other animals and their importance, humans' bravery, an animal's strength, and an animal's position in the ecosystem for men. I highly recommend it, unless you don't really want to hear about fishing, but it's really not about the fishing, it's about the man. So, the man and the fish. It's the next day. I've literally sat here and edited my Hot Ones video all day and I'm still not finished, but I'm almost there. But I think it's time for a break, so I'm gonna go in the other room and read Coraline. It has 192 pages, so I don't think I'll finish it today, but I'm gonna put in a good effort and then I have to go in the other room and continue to edit. I'm on to chapter 5 and I'm just getting a bit tired in the eyes. I need to get back to work, otherwise I'm gonna fall asleep. One strange thing about this book is that they have the pictures of what's going to happen in the chapter before the chapter begins. Also, one thing I forgot to mention is that YB's not in the books. Probably they thought that she needed like a friend or something because she was all alone, but oh gosh. But she is oh, okay. So I think they just thought she was really lonely. Okay, Oliver. Hey guys, long time no see. So I finished Coraline. It took me about a week to read because I've just been too busy and I've been doing like 15 minutes a day, half an hour, whatever I can get in. All in all, it took me 2 hours and 16 minutes to read this. And that means we've only got 3 hours and 14 minutes left of the challenge. That means I can only read one more book. But it's a great book, and if you don't know what the book's about, Coraline, the little girl, she was bored at home in her new house and she found this little door and it was bricked behind the door, and she was like, okay. And then she went to sleep, she woke up, and then the door was no longer bricked. She went through the door and she went to like this other world that's like a copy of her own world, and she has another mother, another father. Spoiler alert, the mother's evil. Wants her to stay and wants her to be perfect daughter that she'll give everything to, and she'll make a perfect world for her and cook her the perfect food. The only catch is she wants to sew buttons into her eyes. The difference between the book and the movie, there's quite a few differences. Like I mentioned before, YB's not in it. In the movie, she's kind of like, oh, this is actually a cool world. They had the whole scene in the garden with the dad when they're playing and singing. They didn't have that in the book. In the book, she's like basically straight away, I don't really want to stay here, and leaves, and then comes back reluctantly because her parents are missing. Whereas in the movie, I believe she goes back like a couple of times at least before she's like, alright, this is wrong, and stops going. Things like a few of the challenges are different. When she's escaping the mother at the very end, she doesn't have like the web that falls and the mother becomes like a spider. She just kind of throws the cat and runs. They're a lot more crazy in the movie than in the book, and at the end how she gets rid of the mother's hand is also slightly different, but things have to be different because YB's not there and characters aren't there, you know, that kind of thing. Anyway, great book. I don't know what I'll read next. I've got 3 hours 14 minutes. This took me 2:16, so I'm probably gonna have to finish one book and start a small bit of the next book, or start a slightly bigger book than this. I've been to a lot of things and got a lot of more books since my last filming because we had this book fair. Every book was like $2-3. It went for 3 days, and on the third day everything was half price. It was all donated books and all the money was going to charity. I didn't just buy some, I bought a heap, and I have no room for them. My parents also came back from holiday and they got me 3 books. One was called What Katie Did. I think it's called The River Babies, and one was a huge book, all of the Mary Poppins book, and it's absolutely huge, and I think there's like 6 Mary Poppins books and they're all in the one book. So I'm excited to read that. But here's a few of just the ones that I have here. The Heart's Lonely Secrets, The Enigma, Dexter, David Copperfield. I've given Jared the role of my last book in picking it, so let's see what he chooses.
Big book still though.
Yeah. There just is, like, that's why it's like
you
this.
You might be able to get it in.
Yeah, maybe actually.
Probably.
This one was actually the same size as the Hunger Games, and I think that took me almost 6 hours. So I'm not sure actually. The Secret Garden was what Mary called it when she was thinking of it. She liked the name, and she liked still more the feeling that when its beautiful old walls shut her in, no one knew where she was. It seemed almost like being shut out of the world in some fairy place. Port is enjoying the sun. Because I don't want sun cancer on the back of my head, I use my bonnet and I just do like this, because these curtains are sheer, so they're not going to do anything, and I'll just sit like this. I've read for 57 minutes now. I've made it to chapter 5, and so far it's a really great book. I haven't made it to the actual garden yet, but it seems like we're about to make it into the secret garden. So basically all that's happened is that she was born in India and her mom and dad didn't really care for her. They just kind of gave her off to the servants, and she was raised by her servants all her life. So she's a very unlikable girl, and she's very stuck in her ways and stubborn. Everyone dies of cholera in her bungalows, and so her mom dies and her dad dies, and what happens is she comes to live with her uncle in England, and he's also like an unhappy old man because his wife has died. The garden that is the secret garden is the wife's old garden that he actually closed off, threw away the key so that no one could get in. Now it's her mission to get into that garden. 1 hour, 30 pages, and it has 200 pages in it. I don't think I'll make it through this whole book in 3 hours, maybe 4 or 5, but I'll still do it for the video anyway, even if I go a bit over 24 hours. I just did Japanese for an hour and a bit, so now I'm going to read for like half an hour before I have dinner. So probably like 10 more pages, I guess. This book has really small letters, so you can't expect too much from me. So, good news, I finished it. If you don't know what the book is, because I didn't know it before I picked it up, it's basically following a few children around as they discover this secret garden, and they have a great time doing it, obviously. A few of the themes and things like that I noticed in this book were prevalent. It was very big on perspective and outlook on life and people, and how that like affects you as a person and how that affected the children in the book. Lots about discovery, animals, nature, gardening, gardens. Recovery from illness was also a big point of the story. Also, a slight hypochondriacism, mainly about the mind's power, especially in children who are very, very malleable, and how it doesn't take too much to change your perspective and your outlook on life to change how you think and how you act. So a lot of rebirth, gratitude, and human change, basically. It was a great book. It took me about 6 hours to read. So I did go over the 24 hours. I finished halfway through this book. I finished my last 3 hours and 15 minutes, and then it took me another 3 hours to finish the rest of the book. So I went technically 3 hours over time, but that was just because I wanted to finish the book, because I wanted to be able to talk about it with you guys. It is set in like olden times, but it's not written super crazy or hard to read. It's actually very simple to read. A bit of like Yorkshire speak throughout the book, but that's a part of the themes and stuff and a part of the characters, but other than that, very easy to read. So now I want to talk about the challenge. So I'm happy to say that this challenge has benefited me in my daily life. It has made me prioritize a meditative habit daily that made me feel productive and was at the same time entertaining, because I'm reading fiction books. Before this challenge, I loved to read, but it was hard to fit in a time to read because of life. By the end of this challenge, I actually had started to make a consistent time slot in my day where I would only fit in reading a book. At first I was spreading out my reading sessions like throughout the day, just trying to get as many hours in as I possibly could, because we were in the early session and 24 hours of reading takes a long time. It takes 24 hours and a lot of days. So I was just spreading it out throughout the day, doing like big chunks, and then at the end of the day having like read 3 or 6 hours so that I'd get the hours in quickly. But obviously I have a life and a job, and on top of that many other commitments, so it's not like I can sit around all day reading a book as much as I'd like to. When we started to slow down and it was like the end of the challenge, I started to make it more of a half an hour to an hour a day if I could sort of thing. It was still prioritized. I still wanted to do it every single day, but obviously I couldn't do it for hours. So it became a daily habit to finish all of my work for the day. I would do my work, I'd do my study of Japanese, I would edit, and then I would go into the next room and I would read for half an hour to an hour, depending on how restless or how tired I was. Your eyes get very tired, so sometimes there were days when I just couldn't do it because I barely could keep my eyes open, and there were other days where I would just sit there and read for hours. After I had finished reading, it was like the habit of go downstairs, make dinner. It was a perfect like end of day cap that kind of left me in a really calm state. I no longer had so many things on my mind because I had already gotten them all out during the workday, and that was my workday done. So no more productivity, just going, resting, and just chilling out for the rest of the night. For me, it worked as a timestamp and a like chapter marker for my day, so it really helped me cement a consistent routine. It became, rather than let's see where I can fit in reading for the day, let's see if I can't do it now, maybe I'll do it later, I don't end up doing it later and then I don't read at all. Instead it was like, finish your work, read, go have dinner. I find that to put tasks into your daily routine, it's really good to like match them up with other tasks, so make a flow of your day. I always have a million and one things going on in my head. I'd always find that I'd get to the end of the chapter and I'd realize I hadn't understood anything I was reading. I had basically read with my eyes on autopilot with my brain, and my brain was, instead of comprehending the book, it was comprehending the thoughts I was having on a completely different subject. In the initial stages of this challenge as well, I had more time to read, so reading for a longer period of time I find is also a great way to really get into the book and like actually understand what you're reading, because if you're just reading for half an hour, it's kind of hard to like get into the story. But by the end of like the first hour of reading, going into your second hour, you kind of like only thinking about the book. You forgot that you're even in the world now, you're in your book's world. That's another trick of getting into a book and understanding what you're reading, is just read for longer. Otherwise, read when you've got nothing else on your mind. I also had to check in with you guys to tell you where I was in the book and what was happening in the book. So to be able to do that, I really had to pay attention to the book and make sure I was understanding everything, so I wouldn't look like a fool and I would actually have something to report back to you guys. I also learned not to beat myself up too much about having to skip a day or two if I was too tired or too busy and I couldn't fit in reading. I found that each time I try to check a daily habit, I always go too hard on myself as soon as I miss one day, and as soon as I miss that one day, my daily habit ends up going totally downhill. I end up never coming back to it because I'm just too unmotivated because I missed one day. I've realized it's better to think of it as a 70% sort of thing. Just aim to do something most days of your week. Sometimes you'll have a clearer week when you can use your habit every day, and other weeks you'll only be able to complete it like 70% of the week. Life fluctuates, and so do our commitments to work, school, social life, and personal life. You're not always able to control how much free time you have left over to do productive or entertaining things after you've done all your other tasks throughout the day. But getting started is the first step of many. So if you take one thing from this video, it's to go easy on yourself and just go with the flow of life. No one can fit 24 hours of reading into one day, but give them a few weeks, give them a month, maybe they'll be closer to that goal. It doesn't matter how quickly you finish the goal, it's that you started and that you get there in the end. Overall, I did 24 hours totally of reading. It took about a month. I did 24 hours plus 1 minute. Then I did 3 more hours to finish off the book so that I could tell you about it. I also bought a whole lot of books during this challenge. You could say it inspired me to get like all of the books that I've been meaning to get anyway that were on my list. And this gave me an excuse to just do a massive haul. It absolutely filled my bookcase to capacity, which is sort of a problem, but it's sort of a solution because it means I can't buy any more books. But I hope this video was able to encourage you to read more, or even inspire you to read one of the books that I read if they sounded interesting, or if they sounded like something that you would like to read, or something out of your comfort zone that sounds like it would still be interesting for you. I attempted to put a variety of story types into this video, like series, classics, young adults, and manga, so I hope one of them piqued your interest. I know that I used to be really stuck in my ways and not really waver from what I was used to reading. If someone would recommend me a book and I'm like, it's not like what I'm used to reading, so no thanks. I'm trying to be more open-minded in what I'm reading. I still sort of read the same sort of things. I only really like to read fiction, but I'm trying definitely to open up my horizons on different sort of things. For example, The Man in the Sea. Also, never take for granted the strength and the greatness of fiction books. I know that teachers and parents often want you to read nothing but the cold hard facts, but sometimes we need a good story. And trust me, there's a whole lot that you can learn from a made-up story. As Neil Gaiman, the author of Coraline, once said, there are people who think that things in fiction don't actually happen. Those people are wrong. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you next time. Bye!